Okay, so let's dive in. We've got this stack of sources in front of us, articles, some sociological studies, expert commentaries.
A lot to unpack.
A lot. And they're all circling this one surprisingly heated topic that seems to be everywhere in dating discussions right now. The, let's call it, scrutiny of childless men over 30.
It's a really intense topic. And, the first reaction almost always is defensiveness. People immediately think, oh, are we judging people who are child-free?
Right, exactly.
But the sources we're looking at are actually very careful to draw a line between a conscious, intentional choice and, well, an observable life pattern.
And that's what we're doing today. To be super clear with you, this deep dive isn't about judging biology or, a chosen child-free lifestyle. Our mission here is to impartially report on the patterns that this material identifies. The priorities, the relationship history, the emotional growth, all the things that women and dating experts are apparently scrutinizing to see if someone is a viable long-term partner.
Yeah, and the initial framing is so important here. The sources aren't saying independence is bad. Of course not.
No.
But they are analyzing whether certain persistent patterns raise legitimate questions about emotional maturity, about commitment, about the willingness to actually merge your life with someone else's.
So it's about separating that true, conscious choice from what might be behavioral avoidance.
That's the core tension. Exactly. Right. That's what we're exploring for you today.
Okay, so let's start right where the sources do, which is with commitment patterns. Specifically, what happens when a man hits his 30s?
Right. This is typically a gig decade.
It's when you usually see some career stability, right? Your finances get a bit more defined. You kind of solidify your personal values.
Yeah.
Sociologically, this is the phase where that push for a long-term relationship really ramps up.
And that's the critical inflection point. So when a man gets to this relatively stable place in life without having started a family, the analysis says we have to look really closely at the why behind it.
This is genuine intent.
A clear child-free path, yeah.
Or is it a symptom of a more general avoidance?
And that's the potential red flag.
And the number one red flag, according to this material, is when that childless status seems tied to avoiding commitment. Just across the board. The sources detail these specific behaviors.
I've seen these.
You have men who, they love the support of a partner, the emotion, the domestic side of it. They love having someone there.
The companionship.
Exactly. But they actively resist any step that leads to permanence. Signing a lease together, mixing finances, even just defining the relationship.
It's fascinating how the sources use the experience of having children as this magnifier for responsibility and long-term planning.
A magnifier, that's a good word.
And the lack of that experience doesn't automatically make someone a bad person, of course not. But it can signal a kind of emotional stagnation to a partner, especially if that stagnation pops up in other areas of his life.
But hang on, isn't that a little unfair? I mean, you've got plenty of successful childless men running huge companies, managing complex projects, maintaining deep friendships. Are the sources really saying that parenthood is the only test for emotional maturity?
That's a great question and a necessary one. They are careful to say it's not the only test, but it is the most common and maybe the most visible one.
Okay.
The issue isn't about biology. It's about this pattern of what they call the delay of responsibility. That's what partners are flagging. If a guy in his mid-30s hasn't voluntarily taken on some big external responsibility,
like a mortgage, a pet, caring for a parent.
Or a child, obviously. If that's missing, the sources suggest he lacks the proof of long-term self-sacrifice that, frankly, women are demanding more and more.
So it's about looking at the bigger picture. Has he moved beyond just short-term self-focused thinking in any major part of his life?
Exactly. If his dating history and life choices just show this repeated resistance to growing up, to taking on more, well, that's what raises the skepticism.
Right.
But then that leads us perfectly into the next section, which is all about lifestyle.
Okay, let's pivot to that. The sources call it the self-centered lifestyle. And they don't mean selfish in a mean way.
No, not malicious.
It's more about a life that's just defined by total autonomy. He's the guy with the super flexible schedule. He can book a last-minute flight to Lisbon.
Minimal domestic accountability.
Zero. And a social life that's all about spontaneity, late nights.
It's basically the prolonged adolescence model, optimized for convenience. And again, let's be clear, that lifestyle isn't inherently bad. It's freedom, it's fun.
Sure.
But the conflict happens when that man starts dating someone who has already made that shift outward. someone who's focused on stability, on building a future.
And that mismatch is huge. The woman is left asking, is this man actually building a future with me, or is he just trying to stretch out the best parts of his 20s forever?
And the sources say that's a completely valid and really important question to ask.
Experts see this prolonged independence as a kind of impediment, a reluctance to graduate from a certain life stage.
Exactly. And this ties right into a concept the sources bring up called legacy thinking.
Okay, tell us more about legacy thinking.
Legacy thinking is that cognitive shift where your focus moves from inward to outward. So instead of what makes me happy or what do I want to do?
It becomes about continuity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Community, the next generation. And this
Right.
doesn't have to be about kids. It could be building a company, a charity, a political movement.
So the concern isn't that he hasn't had a baby. It's that he hasn't moved into a mindset that prioritizes building external structures over just his own internal desires.
Precisely. Men who never make that shift can seem really detached from long-term shared goals. If you're dating someone focused on legacy, every decision is weighed by its future consequence.
Right.
But if you're with someone still in that self-centered stage, every decision is about immediate convenience. And that difference in worldview, that's often what kills the relationship.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because now we're moving past just lifestyle choices and into core emotional traits that the sources link to this pattern. Right.
They talk about how the immediate, constant, non-negotiable demands of being a parent act as a kind of turbocharger for emotional growth.
An emotional pressure cooker.
Yeah. Specifically for forcing you to develop patience, radical empathy, prioritization.
It forces maturity by necessity. Now, the sources do acknowledge that a childless man can be empathetic and patient.
Of course.
But those traits are considered untested by that specific relentless experience. He might have empathy for abstract things, global poverty, politics.
But not for the mundane, day-to-day, emotionally draining demands of someone depending on you.
That's the distinction. Abstract empathy versus immediate, demanding emotional labor. It's a crucial difference.
So what's the specific struggle that experts see when that testing ground is missing?
The biggest thing they note is a resistance to compromise, to integration. Experts observe that men over 30 without kids, the ones in this avoidance pattern, really struggle to blend their lives with someone else's.
To put someone else's needs above their own established routine. Yes, and it shows up in small ways, like being totally unwilling to change his rigid schedule for his partner's emergency, or resisting combining furniture because it, quote, clutters his space.
And that resistance, even on small things, is what becomes so exhausting for the partner who's looking for security.
Absolutely. The bottom line, as the sources frame it, isn't the lack of children. It's the lack of proven, consistent caring for others first.
If his default setting is always his own convenience,
then a potential partner sees that as a fundamental instability. The kid thing is just a symptom or a magnifier of a deeper personality that resists responsibility.
Okay, let's get into the nuance here, because this is the part that's actually useful for you, the listener. We have to separate a conscious, intentional choice to be child-free from a fear-driven avoidance of responsibility.
And the sources are clear. These two paths look completely different when you actually scrutinize a man's history. They leave different footprints.
How so?
Well, men making a conscious choice. They can usually give you clear, rational reasons. It might be about environmental concerns, financial goals, health, or just a genuine philosophical belief. And crucially, their lives are stable in other ways.
Okay, so walk us through that. What does the life of a consciously child-free man look like, according to the sources?
His life shows commitment elsewhere. He'll have stable, long-term friendships, proof he can maintain relationships.
Right, not just romantic ones.
He often has career stability, or he's focused on some complex, long-term project. He might not have a kid, but he's probably paying a mortgage or supporting his community or mentoring someone. He's clear about his child-free stance, no deflection.
And then we have the avoidance profile. What are the tells there? What are the indicators of that delayed responsibility?
That profile is just marked by instability and deflection. Instead of clear reasons, you get vague statements or even blame. My ex was crazy.
It's never been the right time.
I just haven't met the right person. And the history shows it. Chronic job hopping, a string of relationships that never make it past the 18-month mark, maybe some financial irresponsibility.
A fear of labels.
A profound fear of labels, of any kind of future planning. It's a general fear of permanence.
And that insight is so relevant right now, because as women have become more financially and professionally independent, their need for a partner to provide for them has gone way down.
Way down.
But their expectation for emotional maturity and shared responsibility has just skyrocketed.
Exactly. They are demanding proof, not just potential. An independent, high-earning woman doesn't need a guy to pay her bills. She needs a guy who can manage his own life well enough to successfully merge it with hers. She needs to see some structural integrity.
The sources even flag a very specific scenario, and they evaluate it pretty harshly. It's the single man in his mid-30s, with no kids, no long-term friends, and who just works constantly.
Yeah.
Why is that specific pattern so problematic?
Because that combination suggests that the self-centered lifestyle hasn't even been traded for community or, some bigger ambition. It shows an inability or unwillingness to invest in building any kind of stable, long-term relationship, social or familial.
And the work thing.
The hyper-focus on work can be a very sophisticated form of avoidance. It's a way to always be too busy for the messiness of intimacy and a shared life.
That makes sense. It clarifies why the scrutiny is so intense.
Yeah.
So based on all this analysis, what are the 3 essential litmus test questions that women are using?
The sources boil it down to 3 non-negotiables. 1, can he commit? 2, does he understand sacrifice? And 3, can he build something bigger than himself?
Let's expand on sacrifice for a second. We're not just talking about him giving up his Sunday golf game, are we?
No, it's structural. Sacrifice means prioritizing a partner's goals, their security, or their future over your own immediate whim. It could be taking a different job to support her career.
Or dedicating a weekend to help a friend move when you'd rather be doing something else.
It's that demonstrated willingness to put the we before the me. And the skepticism just grows exponentially when a man's whole life provides no evidence that he can answer yes to any of those 3 questions.
So what does this all mean for you, navigating this world?
I think the synthesis is pretty clear. Being over 30 with no kids doesn't, on its own, make a man flawed.
Not at all.
What it does is signal a necessary need for scrutiny. You need to look at the patterns behind that status.
It's a prompt for a conversation. A red flag isn't a stop sign. It's a signal to ask deeper questions.
Right.
And the men who successfully defy these stereotypes are the ones whose life patterns, their stable friendships, their career goals, their ability to compromise all clearly support their stated intentions, whether that's to be child-free or to find a partner.
So if the pattern shows he's built something, he's taken on responsibility somewhere else, and he's living out a clear, child-free belief, then the flag comes down pretty easily.
But if he's still just waiting for life to happen to him and his history is full of delayed decisions, then that scrutiny is probably warranted. At the end of the day, the most powerful conclusion from the sources really holds true. Patterns speak so much louder than intentions when it comes to dating.
Absolutely. And the underlying concern for partners isn't really why he doesn't have kids. It's why life through work or community or just responsibility hasn't yet pushed him to grow past that self-focus into an outward-facing adult, that resistance to taking on a structure. That's what's driving all the skepticism.
That's a really profound thought for you to explore. The skepticism isn't about the absence of a child, but the potential absence of the maturity that having a child often forces on you, something to mull over as you connect commitment to visible, documented patterns.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the dynamics of modern dating.